Welcome back to another episode of CHP Sports. We are back after another week off because my co-host to my left, Kenny, went on vacation. So we'll start there. Kenny, how was your vacation with the family?
It was good, man. We were tired, but we went to New York City first, which I'm not a huge fan of the city. I tend to get a bit anxious in that situation. But once we got there and, kind of set up, you got to imagine too, we have a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old, and my mom was with us, and, we're trudging through the city, and we kind of made a self-guided Ghostbusters New York City tour and took my kid all of these spots that were in the Ghostbuster movies, and he absolutely loved it. So it was fun, and it was my birthday, so we ate out the one night at Serendipity 3, it's called, made famous by the movie Serendipity.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, super cool spot, little tiny place. Kind of walk down like Cheers almost. You walk down into it.
Yeah.
But known for their like big desserts and cakes and dinners, and it was good. So that was our trip there, and then from there we hit Legoland. That was overpriced and not worth it in my opinion, but my kid liked it. So the line.
I've gotten into collecting Legos, as I think I mentioned, and they are not cheap, but I find them to be a lot of fun. I was actually at our local Lego store yesterday because I got on a kick for I'm weird, or you and our viewers know this already, but I'm very weird in that I'll get fixated on something, and so for some reason this past week I got fixated on Christmas presents. I know Christmas isn't for 4 months,
Yeah,
but I was wanting to buy I had ideas for Christmas presents, so I was like, well, I'm getting them now, and so I went and got Christmas presents at various places across the city.
so now you're done.
And I was near, yeah, well, not completely, but I've got a lot of people are done or very close to done. And I ended up, after one of my stops, I ended up by the Lego store. So for myself, I went in there and saw if they had anything I wanted to pick up.
Yeah.
So
no, but Legoland was cool in the fact that their displays are unbelievable, right? So they have
they're crazy.
They have a whole replica of New York City, Washington D.C., Philly, very cool there. My son liked they have little stations where you can go build things, so he liked that. The problem was you're paying for the rides, right? But the rides were 60-minute waits, not enough rides and the rides were small. They were getting on 10 people at a time, right? In the line, there's 100 people in the line. So, it was wasn't worth it in that sense, but he had fun. And then from there, we went to Cooperstown. So tying into some sports, very cool town, super cool place to go. They have a big lake there. We got an Airbnb, right by the lake. What was that?
How big is the population there? I know the Baseball Hall of Fame is in Cooperstown, but I have no sense of how big Cooperstown is. Is it 20,000 people? Is it 50,000 people? Is it?
If I had to guess, I can probably look it up, but I would say no more than 20,000. It's kind of a smaller town. Okay, it's got it's got a little downtown, and it's got a couple miles out of downtown. There's I think it's called what is it called? The Cooperstown, it's their field of dreams, basically. There's a bunch of baseball fields, and from what I was told, there'll be anywhere from 180 some baseball teams, younger kids play tournaments per weekend over the summer. And that's kind of their influx of business. And it's a cool little town. You can walk it. It's one street. There's a wax museum. There's baseball bat, wooden bat places, engraving. We got Brock, a little bat with his name on it. It's a Phillies bat. And then the Hall of Fame, right? It's super cool. I loved it because you can make what you want out of it. If you're a true hardcore baseball fanatic of stats and all that kind of stuff, you could probably stay there for hours, right? Or you can just kind of peruse through the 3 floors and, see what you kind of want to check out. And super cool stuff in there as far as the history of baseball. I mean, you're looking at Babe Ruth's glove, right? They have his glove and uniform in there. I thought that was super cool.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah. And they gave my kid a sheet. It's a scavenger hunt, right? And so you find different facts and different displays. So that was fun. But they really covered everything from, the history not only of baseball, but of women in baseball, of minorities in baseball, of, starting, how did it start? And, that kind of stuff that you don't really think about as, just a everyday fan. So it really brings you into all aspects. They even go into the Latino community, and there was like a nice thing with like Roberto Clemente and players like that. And so that was really cool too, to see all angles of it and how it's gotten to where it is now. So I really enjoyed that. My son liked it too. There was a lot of cool stuff in there for the kids. So, all ages, and you saw grandfathers there, kids down to, my son's age is 6 that can all enjoy it. So it was a fun time. I really appreciated that. I thought it was a cool trip there. It's definitely worth it. And the towns, I would go there just for the town. Like it's a really cool area. There's breweries within a couple miles, and just a lot of stuff to do, to eat out, and just to really relax and enjoy yourself. And it wasn't stressful. It wasn't crowded. It wasn't, we went from like that New York City setting where no matter what time it is, it's crowded, right? To being out by a lake, right in the middle of New York State, where it was, much more laid back. But I enjoyed.
How far of a drive is it from New York State or New York City?
It was probably about 2.5, 3 hours total, but we did stop in the middle, right from at Legoland.
I'm looking at a map right now. I was just curious.
Yeah, Legoland was like an hour and a half, I think, but mostly due to just getting out of the city. Once you're out of the city, it wasn't that far. And miles-wise, it's not an hour and a half of miles. It just takes you 40 minutes to get out of the city, and then it's probably another 40 minutes or whatever from there. But and then Cooperstown was another, I think, 2 or 2.5 from.
Cooperstown is, they're saying 4 hours from like New York City.
Okay, so that makes sense. Yeah, about an hour and a half and then 2.5. So that makes sense. But overall, from me, right, I live in South Jersey. It only took us like a little over 5 hours to get all the way back home, so not too bad. But it was definitely worth a trip, even just for like your, kind of nonchalant fan, if you will. Just a cool city, cool area. Really nice. Just a lot of.
So this is an interesting topic. So I'm curious. It's something for us to talk about as we were talking off air, the doldrums of kind of the sports calendar here.
Yeah.
Have you been to other sports Hall of Fames, and how do they stack up? Like if you had to rank order them, like where you would go back to or what you would recommend first, what would they be?
So, I've never been to the Football Hall of Fame, unfortunately. I remember vaguely being to the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's in, I want to say Massachusetts, or I forget where it's at.
Yes, that sounds correct.
I vaguely remember being there when I was young, so I really have nothing to compare to. I wish I did, right? I would love to go to those as well. So this was kind of my first experience with that, but I did enjoy it. I thought it was cool. And like I said, I think I went to the Basketball Hall of Fame when I was a kid because my uncle lived in Connecticut, and I think we went there. Not that it wasn't a memorable experience, but I was probably 6 years old or something like that. Yeah. Like my kid right now, he won't remember the Baseball Hall of Fame in 10 years. Like he just won't. So I wish I had, and I'm not sure where is it Massachusetts? I have to look.
Springfield, Mass.
Springfield, yes. So I'm pretty sure I was there. I want to say I was. I vaguely remember it. But I would love to go to the Football Hall of Fame. I think that would be cool.
Football Hall of Fame. So it's interesting. It's weird. Like when you're you
live out there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, when you're a tourist, you always you make plans around these things. Like if I was going through Cooperstown, I'm like, well, I'm not a huge baseball fan, but I would definitely stop at the Baseball Hall of Fame because how can you not?
Yeah.
If you're there, of course. And it's interesting. I've been to the Football Hall of Fame because that's up in Canton, and Maria's from Akron, and her good member of her family that we see fairly regularly lives literally like an exit down from the Football Hall of Fame, like past the Football Hall of Fame, and like the next exit you get off and get on, like they're like 2 minutes off the exit. But I haven't been kind of like you. I went to the Football Hall of Fame when I was very young, maybe like somewhere between 8 and 10. So I vaguely remember it. I remember like all the heads, right? Because they have the bust of all the people. When you get enshrined, you get a bust of your face, your head, and so I remember seeing those. But again, I was young, right? So I don't remember too much about it. And I feel like, I haven't been back since. I can't say I have a strong urge to go back, right? I mean, I guess, trying to think what other Hall of Fames I've been to. I've been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is in Cleveland. And that was actually for an event of all things. I got in free. We weren't necessarily going for the Hall of Fame, but there was an event there for a car company that we went to, that we got invited to. So we went. Makes me sound like a big fancy pants. I'm not. But we got invited to this thing through some dealership, and we went, and it got you free admission to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame like at night. So the only people that were in there were the people at this event, and it was actually pretty cool. They sort of have that access. But it was, it was fun to walk through. But it was one of those things where I was like, I'm glad I didn't pay for it. That makes sense. But I'm glad I did it. But if you would have told me what the experience was, I'm like, hey, you have to pay whatever our ticket is to Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like probably like $30. I'm like, I don't really want to pay the $30. So yeah, I guess I haven't been to Cooperstown and I haven't been to Springfield, which are like in some ways they're both in such like even in Canton, they're all like kind of in random places. They're not necessarily close to anything.
Yeah, and that was like me and my wife had this conversation because it wasn't like I didn't vacation in Cooperstown because of the Baseball Hall of Fame, right? But it was there, and of course I'm going to check it out, right? Because I was there.
Of course.
I basically was like, hey, I never do anything when I take off. Let's go to a lake house or something. And she used to go to Cooperstown with a friend in high school. The dad had a house that he used to go up there every year. She's like, let's go to Cooperstown. I'm like, because we were already going to be up in New York. I was like, oh, cool. So we went, and I'm like, yeah, and like I said though, it might have. I think it was like $20 per adult or whatever. But I thought it was worth it. It was cool. And again, you make of it what you want, right? It isn't a weird place, right? But that whole town is like baseball motivated, I guess you will. There's those fields. They have dorms at the fields. It's kind of like a big deal up there. There's a lot of fields, and they have huge tournaments. So it makes sense in that sense, right? Because they have a huge baseball following that goes there every year. There's also an old field there. I forget what it's called. It's like 100 years old, and they preserve it. And I think it's where I don't know if that's where they filmed what was the one with Tom Hanks? A League of Their Own?
Oh, League of Their Own. Yeah.
For some reason, I'm remembering it might have been linked to that movie or something, but really cool field. We walked around in there. Just an old style, big green surrounding around the back where like the stands are. And just cool. There was just a lot of history there. It was cool to see. So I recommend it if you're going up there. And there's a lake there. So, it's just like, and it's a huge lake, real pretty. Mountains right across from it. Very cool looking place. So.
What were your thoughts on the Field of Dreams baseball game that the MLB did?
I love it. I love the idea of it. The game was great, right? It ended up being a walk-off win for the White Sox. I think it adds like a cool thing to this time of the year where it's like, why is anyone watching baseball right now? And, I think I saw the ratings were like one of the highest rated games that have been watched in years. So, it was a good idea on the MLB's part, I thought. And I think having things like that are cool. And I know they do the game at Williamsport, right? The Little League spot. They've done that before too. So I think it's a cool thing.
Yeah, no, I think it reminds me of the hockey, like the outdoor hockey when they have, on like New Year's Day or whatever. And obviously that's going to get harder and harder to hold in the U.S. with climate change.
Yeah.
It's just getting too warm. They can't really do it. So it'll just have to be in Canada going forward. But I think those special event things that are just like regular season, but they're special event regular season games. I think they're useful. I think especially in sports that have long seasons, right? You can't do it in football, right? Because you can't give up the home field advantage because one game out of 16 makes a huge difference, whereas if you have 162 games, right, you can have a couple special games here and there where there's no like true home field for someone, So I think you could probably even do it with basketball, right? The NBA, right? Could you do like a Harlem, or was it Rucker Park? Where it's like very famous.
Yeah, Rucker
Like
Park.
a Rucker Park game or something like that'd be kind of crazy.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Or something like that where it would be, like just saying it would be like, well, I would probably tune in to watch it just to see like the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Like how nuts would it be?
Because that place,
obviously,
that atmosphere there is crazy anyway. Because a lot of NBA players go there and play an all season and already, and there's some crazy good players there that like no one's ever even heard of. Well, outside of Rucker Park, right? Locals know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, there's, it might not work for logistical and safety reasons, but like, are there like things like that you could think of, that, even if it's maybe, I hate to say preseason because I think preseason does take the luster off of it. Like, I don't think you should do it for preseason, but there's got to be a way to like, if the NBA and you're thinking about, I mean, I know they've kind of shortened the season this past year. I don't know is the season shortened this year for the NBA?
I can't remember when that takes effect. If it does take effect, I don't know.
But like a lot of people have said that the NBA shouldn't start really until like about Christmas.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so why not make a Christmas game some sort of weird special? I don't know. I mean, it gets hard, obviously, because also the NBA is playing during the winter. So how do you make it happen when it's, doing it outside's hard because it's cold.
Yeah.
In most places, unless you did like Miami or something.
Yeah. Texas.
But there's got to be something.
Yeah. No, it's a cool thing to think about. Obviously, football is tough because you got to think of revenue too. Like they're, making a lot of money each game. Versus like baseball, where they're making a lot of money, but there's 80 games at a home stadium versus 8.
Well, I mean, the thing with football is like in some ways they're as much as I think it's hard to do in football because of the shortened season. They already do it with going to like London and
they do have
Mexico
games.
City.
Yeah,
but it's like the old adage or what's been thrown about here in Columbus is why not have the Browns play the Bengals in the horseshoe here in Columbus.
That would be cool.
Right. It's basically midway between the two. It's this historic college stadium. Like you don't have to do it every year, obviously, but like, once every 5 or 10 years, you have this, historic meeting, in Ohio State, stadium. It'd be nuts. Like, and you're going to sell, it's going to sell out.
Yeah.
It's a 100,000 seat stadium. It's going to sell out.
Or imagine like the Raiders and the Rams at the Rose Bowl, right? Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing.
Or, in Miami, you could go to where's Miami play? The U, the Orange Bowl, Dolphins versus the Tampa Bay Bucks, right? Something like that. Yeah. A lot of cool options like that for sure for football. Yeah, I think the way they did it too was good. Having the guys walk out of the cornfields and all that, that was, they really played into the whole history of the movie. And, there was a whole, that was the other thing they had at Hall of Fame was a baseball movie display, right? They had all the movies that had baseball in it, and Field of Dreams obviously was in there, League of Their Own, like stuff like that. So that was cool to see too. When you kind of combine sports and movies, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
So it looks like the only real sort of ongoing sport right now we have is obviously baseball at the current time. In some ways, like some of the I guess was it pennant races are kind of over. Like we were talking about the AL Central, because that's the only team I vaguely follow for baseball are the Guardians, currently the Indians, soon to be Guardians.
Yeah.
And which I am a fan of the name, so I do like the Guardians. I think that's a good name.
It's better than the Redskins name.
What have they picked one?
No, they're the football team.
Yeah, honestly, they should just keep the football team. Like we all got used to calling them that. Just call them that.
Yeah, just come up with something. But yeah, so they are 9.5 back.
Yeah, but like that race is over, right? The White Sox have clearly won the division. I guess. Yeah, like I don't know. Milwaukee's up by quite a bit in the NL Central. I guess some of them are kind of close. Like the Giants and the Dodgers are close.
Yeah, and either way, both teams are getting in from there.
Yeah, they're both like so far ahead of everyone else in baseball.
Yeah, and then the Astros Athletics is pretty close too. They're within 3.5 games.
3.5, yeah.
And my beloved Phillies were in first place, and by like a game and a half or so, I think it was, and now they're back 5 games just like that. 4-6 in the last 10. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's never good when you look at the last 10. They're 4-6, and the team in front of them is 9-1.
9-1,
It's like,
yeah.
oh, oops.
And the Mets have completely fallen off. They're 2-8. So I never dislike seeing that, but typical Philly sports team gets you all excited, has a good schedule. The Mets had a bad schedule, and then out of nowhere, the Braves just get hot, and the Phillies don't, and get swept by the Diamondbacks, who are one of the worst teams in the entire league.
Oof.
I mean,
Oof.
you couldn't even win one there. It was tough to see. But, there's still time. There's still hope. Who knows? What do they have? Probably 30 games left, something like that.
It's like they've been playing forever, and they still got 30 games.
Yeah, it's like one. Yeah,
the season's so long.
They're in the 120s, so 30-some games left.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But we'll see. I mean, there are a couple of tighter races, but I think the Brewers probably run away with that division. The Yankees and the Rays is getting closer. It's gotten closer. So.
Well, and that's the thing. That's what makes it so hard to get excited. And we were talking about this beforehand. It's just how long the season is, right? It's like it feels like baseball's been going on for months because it has been.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's like, all right, here is the time, right? The NBA, which ran later than normal because of the pandemic, right? They had to shift the season back, right? Runs into July, but that falls off. You got the July this year. Then you got the Olympics, right? Great. So now you have this nice block of time where you would if you were designing it, you would say, all right, if I was like running baseball, I'd be like, all right, this is the time I want like the most exciting baseball to happen, right? Because nothing else is going on, right? Like let's have people really invested in our sport and have that investment carry on through, the playoffs and whatnot, right? And if there were like 10 games left in the season right now, or 10 to 15,
which is where that's where they should be. Honestly, that's where I think it would be better. Yeah.
Yeah, because that puts you. Because if you think about that, if you have 10 to 15 games, that puts you basically like let's say you have like 10 to 12 games. That's like a little over 2 weeks. We'll say 2.5 weeks because you got obviously days off in there. We'll say 2.5 weeks, right? So that basically puts you like you have a pennant race right before the football season starts because the football season is not starting until
first week of September.
Yeah, because it's like one more week of playoffs, but then they have a week off and then the start of the season.
Yeah.
So they basically are like 3 weeks away, or 2.5 by the time this goes live, basically. So it's like, okay, that you have a pennant race right before the football season starts, and then you have the playoffs start. So like you're going to hold viewership, an interest, even though football is starting, right? We know the football is a monolith of, interest for the viewers, right? So you're competing with that, right? And it's hard to compete with that when I go, okay, we're doing this show. It's like, all right, what's going on in baseball? Oh, well, this race is over and there's 30 games left, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this race is kind of close, but there's 30 games left. So who knows what's going to happen in 2 weeks? So I just think that not only is the season too long, it's also not timed well in some ways, I think.
Well, and I think, too, I remember when the Phillies won in 2008, they had to cancel a game because it was snowing in Philly. Like, who wants to play baseball in that weather? That's not baseball weather to me, and it has an effect on the game, right? Hitting, pitching, like it's harder to pitch, right? You can't get as good grip on the ball. Hitting the ball feels like your hands are getting electrocuted. So just like, I don't know. And as a fan, I don't want to sit out that and watch baseball. You know what I mean? And I went to one of those World Series games. It was the game before the weather changed because around where I live in October, it could be 30, or it could be 80. But you just don't know.
Same in Columbus.
But I remember, lasting into the almost Halloween, right? That's such a late season for baseball.
Yeah, and it's like you said, the weather becomes too unpredictable in too much of the country.
Yeah, there's no reason.
And I would say, like,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, just cool weather baseball is good. Cold weather baseball is not, right? So, the World Series should be ending like the first, to me, like the very end of September or the first week there.
Yeah, and I think
that should be the absolute. That's like Game 7. Like everything goes.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't think it should start before May. To be honest with you, because how many games do we see in the spring in Chicago and it's snowing? You know what I mean? Like, or Cleveland, actually.
All right, here's the first pitch and it's flurrying out.
Yeah, like who wants to?
It happens in Cleveland.
Yeah, it's happened in a bunch of spots. Like, who wants to be there for that? baseball, you think warm weather, you think, sunny, not sleet.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
So so there's still a lot of baseball left is basically what we're saying. And so it's hard for, I think, even you as a baseball fan to be excited about what's going on.
yeah. And I know it affects like stats and stuff, but if the game was, if it was 140 games versus 160 games, is it that big of a deal? I don't know.
I mean, baseball is also, baseball's so weird to me. It's so weird with change and stats, despite the fact that there's lots of change that affects stats in baseball.
Oh yeah.
It's like things that were like viewed as okay, like doctoring baseball, is that was just like okay, or viewed as okay for a long time, is like, oh, then all of a sudden it's bad. Well, you got people, Hall of Famers that were like known for doctoring baseball. It's like that was what they were known for.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a game.
Versus...
It's been a game known for some cheating, as any sport. But I mean, there's a lot of ways they try to cheat in baseball for sure.
There you go.
So,
football obviously started. I don't see a reason to talk about preseason, and I don't think you do either.
No.
Because it's
other than like you said, the Broncos are by far the best team in preseason.
The best preseason team.
Yeah, well, I'm calling it a win, and I'm taking it because that's my team.
Yeah, yeah. So it's. I mean, I think getting rid of the fourth preseason game was incredibly smart.
Yes.
I think you see that. I was just talking to you, like watching. Having been a Browns fan and being a Browns fan. Currently not suffering Browns fan, which is nice for a change.
Good year, I watched the last year
preseason game.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like I said, that's not suffering. Like it's weird to actually be like good, or competent at the very least. But I watched the start of their second preseason game, and there's not even none of the like offensive starters are in. So it's like obviously the starters only need like one game, right? It's like one game for a half probably. They'll probably play half of the third preseason game, and that'll be it. And it's like, okay, the rest is just figuring out who's filling out the bottom half of your roster, getting people jobs, which is good. You need to do that. But, we didn't need 4 games for that, right? 3 games, nope. You probably could do it in 2, honestly. But, okay, 3.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they don't do more like, even if it was 1 or 2. I mean, as kids, I remember we just had like 1 practice game. But before that, you had like controlled scrimmages. Same with high school football. We had controlled scrimmages, and then we had 1 like game, right? It was a fake game, preseason game, and then it was your season. And that was plenty. And I think they should do more controlled scrimmages. If you want to film them or put them on ESPN, that's fine. But I think it would cut down on a lot of, I don't know. Is anybody really watching these? No. If it was just called a controlled scrimmage, I'd probably watch it because I know what I'm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what you're watching, right?
You know
what? Yeah, and it probably reduces injury risk for the players.
Or even like the inter squad. Colleges do the, like the Ohio State does. I don't know what it's called. It's like the silver red game.
Silver versus silver versus scarlet.
Yeah. So that kind of stuff. Yeah. But again, what you're
spring game.
Yeah, you know what you're looking at, right? It's just kind of a dress rehearsal and get people out and moving. And you get to see maybe the backup who might be the quarterback of the future or something like that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if 3 games is worth it. It's good that it's not 4.
I think for an individual player, you don't need 3.
Yeah.
I think you probably need 2. And I would say you need 2, not because any individual player needs 2. But I think most guys, between the practices and the inter squad scrimmages they have, there's enough competition there. Like where really you need like a half to get up to game speed, and you're okay probably. Like I think more you need 2 just because you need to evaluate the bottom half of the roster. So some of those guys that you're like, okay, am I keeping player A or player B? I need to cut one of them, so I need to give them both time. I think it's more you need 2 games for that.
Yeah, I'm okay.
You probably don't need 3.
Yeah, I think maybe you do 2 controlled scrimmages, 2 games, right, or something like that. And if ESPN wants to air the controlled scrimmages, do that. I'd watch that probably. Heck, I watched the combine. I watched random college football games of like North Dakota State versus, because I like football. You know what I mean?
It's 10 p.m. at night. Is
Yeah.
there anything on TV? Oh, there's a random football game.
Yeah.
Oh, I will definitely watch that.
There's a West Coast college football game on of two, like San Diego State versus whoever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm going to watch it. It's just what I'm going to do. I'll probably fall asleep eventually, but I like watching football. And the preseason games though, it's almost like I don't want to watch them because I know the preseason games, and I know it's just
it's like false hope if they're good, and it's also like false worry if you're the you're not even playing starters and you're losing. You're like, oh, we're losing. It's like, why am I worried about this? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, like the Eagles lost, I think 30-something to the Patriots. And I live in the Philly area, so it was like, well, everybody's freaking out, and I'm like, it is weird they didn't score any points. But then I looked at who played, and it was like no one really played like at all.
Yeah.
which I thought was weird too, because Hurts is still a new guy. Like he started some games last year. If he's going to be their starter, like maybe you want to play a little bit more, get some more snaps. I don't know, but yeah, what do I know? I'm not a coach, so I always let them figure it out.
Exactly. Exactly. And I guess the only other thing we had on the docket to at least mention was we did have the Prefontaine Classic this past weekend. And it was worth mentioning for at least two performances. Athene Mo reset her American record in the 800 meters. It was her last race of the summer, and she ended up going 1:55.04, which is the new American record. She set the old one in Tokyo, so it's not like the record was that old, but before she came along, I think I've been around for a while, and so quite fast. Looking at the times here from the last, who's faster than her, and really, the fastest time in the last decade, the only person faster than her is Castor Semenya from South Africa, who's 1:54.25. All the other times are from like the 80s and 70s, which, all right. So the fastest time is someone out of Munich in 1983. So I'm sure natural. The second fastest time is 1980 Soviet Union.
No, they weren't on anything.
No,
not at all.
Yeah, they're one in 153s. So yeah, weird that you would set these records 30 years ago or almost 40 years ago, I guess, and they haven't been improved upon.
What year did the German swim team get busted?
Oh, I don't even know.
It was like the whole team, right? Like every person.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the you go back and look at some of those Olympics from like that time period, and you look at some of the athletes, and it's, choose my words carefully here. Obviously, everyone has their individual differences in hormonal output. We know this, right? So, some people are going to have higher levels of testosterone, whether you're a man or a woman, and some will have lower levels. Not a problem. But there, some of these sort of like the androgenic effects seem so obvious in some of the women competitors at the time that it seems very blatant when you look at it throughout the current lens. So
yeah, and we know,
and more than anything, I just worry about those athletes' long-term health, of course.
Yeah,
right? Because a lot of those athletes weren't told what they were taking. They were just like, here, take this pill. Right here, you want to win for your country, take this pill.
Or imagine being on a Russian team and how crazy that was.
I don't think you really have a choice, right? You're like, take this pill. Okay.
Yeah, like,
do I have a choice? No, not really.
And what age does that start? Right, like,
yeah, early.
And
at the time.
Yeah, and like I think about lifters like Dmitry Klokov. Like, I don't know if he's officially ever been called, but he was on the Russian weightlifting team, and like he's been lifting. He's a generational lifter. His dad lifted, like, weightlifter.
Yeah.
What age does that start? Like that's always been my question, because they're basically in camp, right? They just start at a young age and they go to school and they lift weights, and that's their life, right? And a lot of them are picked because of their body types and stuff like that. Same with the gymnasts, right? A lot of body type picking. People are like, gymnasts are really small. I'm like, that's because they get picked for that.
It's like, oh, you have the body type of a gymnast.
Yeah, so
why don't we get you into
gymnastics? Yeah. So it's like, but you just wonder, like, how deep does that go? If you've watched that, what was it called, Icarus or something
Icarus,
on Netflix? I mean, that is the most frightening thing I've ever watched. How that all went down.
I mean, and to be fair, like I don't know that you could obviously turn the mirror on ourselves here in America, right? And obviously,
Yeah.
We obviously had issues. There's doping that's happening.
Oh yeah, this isn't like singling out of countries. It's
yeah, and there's obviously we've with the gymnastics we have obviously these sort of sexual abuse and
awfulness there. That was terrible too. That documentary. Oof.
Well, and it's just sort of taking advantage of very young individuals and children that don't necessarily have the capacity to fight for
back.
themselves.
Yeah, to protect themselves.
Yeah, or to necessarily know what's being done to them is wrong.
Yeah,
because it's being done to them by a position of authority. Right, so we are certainly not blameless here.
No, not at all.
Make that very clear.
Not at all. It is crazy, like you said, to see where those records are in time, and who knows.
Yeah, no, it's just I'm looking at it now. I'm like, wow, these are all from like a time a time where we know this was happening.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, to get back to Athene Mo's run 155.04, flying.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. She's only 18. I think she's starting her freshman year at college.
That is insane.
So she is
she's
insane. She's super.
She was way
super
out
long, super fast. Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. So she should be a dominant force, at that 800-meter distance for a long time. It's very exciting to see her at such a young age be so controlled and so fast.
Yeah.
So congrats to her. And then the other time worth mentioning is the women's 100 meters. Elaine Thompson-Herah goes 10:50. I'm going to make sure I get this right. 10:54, which is, did I freeze? Oh, there you go. 10:54, which is the second fastest time in history behind Flojo's world record of 10:49. We've already talked about Flojo in previous episodes. So, 10:54, I think it's the first woman under 10:6 since Flojo. And so only the second woman ever under 10.6, and she's flying. And in some ways, I feel kind of bad for her because she ran this race, dominated, right? A great field. It was all the top three from the Olympics. All the three Jamaicans that had the top three were there, and obviously Sha'Carri Richardson was there, which was I know a big big ad. She was expected to run well, and she didn't run well. She ran really, really poorly. And hopefully I'm not frozen. Just be out if I'm frozen. There we go.
I can hear you now, kind of.
Hold on. Let me check my internet.
There you are.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. Sorry.
You started to freeze, but you're back.
Yeah, I think my internet had a hiccup there. So we'll see. But yeah, okay. If at any rate, Thompson-Herah, runs great. I think she didn't quite get the press maybe she should have, given that Sha'Carri Richardson shows up in this race and just runs an awful race, right? She just comes in last place. It looked like her start was really good, and then she just didn't have the top end speed, right? Like, I don't know how much she's been running or training since she got suspended. Who knows? I mean, it's probably really difficult to train when you get banned from the Olympics, right? I'm sure like the motivation factor is probably like pretty low.
I probably wouldn't have run it again since it happened. I wouldn't have blamed her.
Yeah. So, I mean, and this is, I mean, I know she's gotten a lot of flack for coming in last, but like, I don't know. She didn't run a good race.
Yeah.
Nothing to say.
Is what it is.
It was her first race back. So yeah, but congrats to Thompson-Herah. 10:54 is stupid fast.
Yeah.
For anyone, it's obviously the second fastest ever for a woman. So really, really impressive. Go watch the race. It was a really fast race. I mean, she ran 10:54. Trying to see. Yeah, Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, who I'd argue is one of the greatest female sprinters ever, 10:73. And Sharika Jackson, the third Jamaican, so top three again for Jamaica, runs a 10:76, right? So you got, the top three women are all under 10:77, which is absurd.
Yeah.
It's a very fast race. So, and it's not like Richardson runs the 11:14, right? If I ran the 11:14, you'd see me doing, throwing myself a party. So
you'd see me with 2 snapped hamstrings if I ran that fast.
Exactly.
That's what you'd see me.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think people just forget how fast these athletes, these Olympic athletes are, and how fast these women are. It's like if you just if you're off, if your top end's down by 10% for whatever reason, training's not great, you got sick, I don't know, something happened, right? You're going to lose by what looks like a lot.
Yeah.
Right. That's how tight those margins are. And you forget that. Who was the NFL football player that ran in the not the combine, but the Olympic trials? The wide receiver for the Seahawks, the really big dude.
Metcalf?
Yeah, DJ Metcalf ran. I think he ran like a 10:35 or something. Right? DJ Metcalf is obviously stupid fast. Like we all know this. Right? And he got smoked right by the Olympic men. The guys in the first round. Right? He wasn't even in the finals. Right? And that's not a knock on DK Metcalf at all.
No.
He's
when you add his size to it, it's even more impressive.
Yeah, like the fact of the matter is you have DK Metcalf, who we know is extremely fast, and yet you're putting him against guys that are world class fast, and it's a different level of fast.
Yeah,
and I think it's just hard because you get used to going like, well, those NFL guys, he's a very fast player, he's very fast, and he is. But when you put it against the absolute world class, like you can be made to look very silly very, very quickly. Like even though you're still extremely fast.
Yeah.
So I think that's all that happened with Sha'Carri. She just had a bad race. She was 10% off her top end speed, and she's gonna look. She's not gonna look great. But yeah, otherwise, I guess the other story from this is that Noah Lyles wins the 200 in 19.52. I think his second fastest time ever. He's off his PR of 19.5, but 19.52 wins the Olympics, right? And I think it's just. What shows what happens when you miss your peak by like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
He just looks like he missed the peak. Right. And that can be due to stress. Like obviously Olympics are a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And it's also you're running multiple rounds over multiple days. So there's contributing factors there. But it also kind of, from the way he looked running going in and the way he looked running there and then here, it looks like he just missed the peak. Right. They were just off by a little bit. That's all.
And that's all it can take, really.
Yeah.
Such a small window there.
Yeah. So, but congrats to him. It's 19.52, still a phenomenal time, right? Like he won. So congrats. Great job. Yeah. So great running there. You get a chance to watch replays. They are mostly available on the YouTube through the NBC Sports YouTube page. So we urge you to go watch those. Kenny, anything else for this week?
No, I think that covers it in a slow sports week. I think we did good.
Slow sports. Probably another slow sports week coming up. I don't think there's a whole lot coming up.
Yeah.
Of course, you can follow us on Instagram, Complete Human Performance. You can email us if you want training or nutrition with either of us. We are running a very short, if you're watching this sort of when it first comes out, we are offering a chance to do Crucible training where you get basically when the time this comes out, 9.5 weeks for the price of 8 weeks. So look through our CHP Instagram. You can work with Kenny or you can work with myself. Both happy to work with you. But yes, go look at our CHP Instagram, sign up, do all the fun stuff. It's a good deal. Get you ready for the Crucible. I know I am slowly getting ready for parts of the Crucible. Maybe not all, but parts. And we will see you all next week. Take care.
See ya.